Thank you very much, Peter, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Juan García Burgos. I'm the head of public engagement at the agency, and it's a pleasure to co-chair this session together with Marco Greco. So I think, first of all, we would like very much Peter and everyone to organize a forum dedicated very much to public engagement. And I think it's very good and very timely to do that, because it would have been maybe difficult to have this discussion years ago, when maybe, as has been clarified and has been presented before, still some of the elements were not fully implemented. And I think we are reaching a point where we can really look properly of what has been done in terms of public engagement. And I think a lot has been done, and hopefully we can go through it today, and we can analyze the things which went well, and the things maybe where we can still have to work a lot in order to progress further. When the new legislation was launched, and when we started to work on its implementation, I think one of the main features that has been highlighted and mentioned by everyone is that the patients and the healthcare professionals, the public itself, were very much at the core. So we really had the legal instruments to make a little bit a different approach to the way that medicines regulation had been implemented together with the help of the patients and the healthcare professionals. We had the opportunity, and I think we tried to work in this direction. And I think, as I said, this is very timely to do this analysis now and to go through all what has been done, because I think it's a particular moment in which, as we have said, all the elements have been implemented. In particular, for example, we had the public hearing last year. So we have maybe one of the main pieces of the legislation fully implemented, so we can include that in the discussion. But we have seen as well how much we have been progressing on patient registries. So a lot of initiatives has been mature enough. And at the same time, we have a new chair in the committee. So it's a very timely moment to really look ahead, and based on the experience that we have had, to see how we can focus. And finally, I think we also have to consider that it's also very timely in the sense that the agency now is being relocated to Amsterdam, which also may have an impact on the way that we interact with patients, interact with the public, perception, etc. So we welcome this very much. And I think this first session that we will co-chairing with Marco, it's going to a little bit go through an overview of what has been done in a practical point of view, but also looking at a more conceptual point of view. And we have Maria Mabris, Natalie Bear, and Patrick Brown. But I think maybe I give the floor to Marco to give a very brief introduction and introduce them as well for the presentations.
Thank you, and once again, welcome this morning. As Juan was saying, we have three very interesting presentations this morning, approaching the subject of patient involvement from three different points of view, all of them have in common the possibility of somehow creating a basis on which we're gonna hopefully develop the future work for facing the challenges that we will also have the time to analyze later on today. And so I think it's time to start with Maria, overview of current patient involvement in pharmacovigilance processes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Mavris. I'm from the Public Engagement Department, headed by Juan García Burgos. So this morning, I'd like to give you first an overview of the current patient involvement at the EMA, and then just tell you in a few words also the patient involvement in pharmacovigilance processes. So if we start with this timeline slide, I'm not going to take you through it. I think some of you have seen it before. It's on our website. But there are some key milestones that have occurred over the 23 years of existence of the agency. And all along, the agency has really very much engaged with patients, also healthcare professionals, but I'm going to speak to you mostly about patients today. We've had patients being involved in the scientific committees as full members. We've had the creation of a unique platform of patients and consumers. And we've also had a department that's been created to really focus on making sure that public engagement does occur with patients, consumers, healthcare professionals, and also academia. So really, I think what I hope to show with this slide is this ongoing commitment to make sure that there's a systematic inclusion of the voice of patients throughout all of the regulatory processes here at EMA. And I'll take this a little further and break this down for you in the next few slides. But from this graph, you can see this is patient involvement. And what this graph shows is the numbers of activities where patients have been involved over the years. The graph shows increasing numbers. This also reflects not only the increasing number of patients that are involved, but the diversity of activities where they are involved in the agency. And this I'll tell you a bit more about. So the way that we look at patient representation here at EMA is in three main categories. So if we start from the orange, we have the patients who represent their community, and these are exemplified by those who are elected to the management board and to the scientific committees. We have patients who represent their organizations, such as those in the working party that I just mentioned, as well as EMA consultations and workshops, such as this. We also have patients as individual experts where they're invited to some more of the specific scientific medicines-related discussions, and I'll tell you more about all of these in the next few slides. So if we start with the patients representing their community, I'm really going to focus on those who are members of the EMA scientific committees. So here you see the 7 scientific committees, six of them are human, and the orange blobs represent where patients are members of the committees as per the legislation. So the dates also reflect the date of creation of the committee. So in 2000, we had the orphan medicinal products, followed in 2007 by the pediatric committee, the advanced therapies, and finally the most recent committee, we can still say that in 2012, the PRAC. So the patients are involved there as full members, but we also have additional patient involvement. So if we take the CHMP, for example, we had a pilot that began in 2014 where patients were invited to oral explanations, and this pilot was a success and resulted in systematic involvement where necessary of patients at oral explanations. If we look at the Herbal Committee as well, we've had patients involved as observers, also reviewing some of the documents, but I'll tell you more about that. And also we now have the adoption of the principles of involving young people in EMA scientific activities. I've put this on with the PDCO, but actually the involvement of young people can be anywhere along the regulatory life cycle. Moving to the next type of representation, we have patients representing their organization. As I said, they can be involved in workshops as chairs, speakers, also just people participating in workshops, but also in EMA consultations. But here I'd really like to focus on this unique platform of the Patients Consumers Working Party. We celebrated our 10th anniversary 2 years ago, so it's really going strong. The Working Party is comprised of members from the EMA eligible organizations. So it's made up of 20 members of patient and consumer organizations. We have a framework of interaction that was first established in 2005, revised in 2014, and we work based on an action plan. And this is really kind of a central working platform where a lot of ideas go through, and really they have a say and a very strong opinion on a lot of things of the working of the agency. So when we look at patients invited to EMA activities as individual experts, we're really looking at a lot of the scientific procedures and the review of documents. So here, this is just a diagram of the regulatory life cycle of a medicine divided into pre-submission, evaluation, post-authorization phases. You see below the different activities, orphan designation, scientific advice, and then linked to those, the committees. I've already mentioned that patients are involved on the committees, but if we look at scientific advice or the scientific advisory groups depicted as expert meetings, patients are involved as individual experts on these meetings evaluating a particular medicine. So they bring their personal perspective of living with the disease and its treatment to these meetings. If we look above the line, we see all the documents that are produced, and these are also reviewed by patients. So here again, the patients are individual experts and providing input on these particular aspects. Just to give you a few numbers, these are the figures from 2017, and you'll find these in the public engagement report that was published and available online. If we look at the committee consultations in blue, 104 committee consultations, 104 patients involved in committee consultations. Similarly, 46 patients were involved in scientific advisory groups and ad hoc expert meetings. And a little earlier upstream, we had 131 patients invited to scientific advice and protocol assistance procedures. This also include meetings with HTA as well last year. A few more numbers, again from 2017, with regard to the review of documents. We had 26 safety communications, 79 package leaflets, 39 medicine overview, and 34 herbal summaries that were reviewed by patients. So you might ask what kind of patient groups we work with. As I alluded to earlier with the PCWP, the EMA has a very broad reach and a good group of what we call the EMA eligible organizations. These organizations fulfill certain criteria which are found on our website, and you can also see a list of these organizations under the Partners and Networks Patients and Consumers tab. But we also work with individuals, as I said. So usually the first port of call is our eligible organizations. We reach out to the organizations in order to help us find a patient, a suitable patient for the scientific procedures or review of documents. But also about a year and a half ago, we launched the individual database where we invite individual patients to sign up, and we can reach out to them, communicate with them, but also involve them in some of the scientific procedures as well. And this has worked quite nicely. So finally, just to touch on a few words of patients specifically involved in pharmacovigilance activities. As we know, we have our two members of the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, Marco Greco here and Albert van der Zijden there. We also have, a little bit further out, we have the committee consults with patients on specific issues. So such as box label design for insulin, or making sure that medication errors can be avoided with regard to extraction of insulin from prefilled pens, or questionnaires to patients with dopamine dysregulation syndrome. So this way, the committee discusses with the two patient members, but also can consult further out when needed. Again, further, I've already mentioned the review of safety communications by patient experts, and also, as we've touched upon today, the reporting of side effects on the ADR reports website in different languages in different countries, where patients can report their side effects directly. Again, this is a subject that you're going to hear quite a lot of, but this is reaching out then further to patients, to the general public as well, the public hearings. And we had our first one in 2017 on valproate-containing medicines, followed up this year with the 2018 quinolones and fluoroquinolones, where the committee had the opportunity to listen to the patients, the healthcare professionals, industry, and the public on the medicines. And Natalie will talk to you more about that. So just a final word, this is my final slide on what is the importance of engaging with patients for EMA. Obviously, they bring a perspective, complementary information to the medical and scientific information that is discussed within the committees, within the working parties, and they bring their everyday experience of living with the disease, its treatment, to complement the other data. I think when you have a patient in the room and you're discussing in a scientific meeting, it also hopefully increases the trust in that process, that they see it firsthand from the inside. It's also transparent as well. So I think once you increase the understanding of how the regulatory processes take place, the communications, the discussions that take place, this hopefully will help the people who are involved to disseminate this information as well, and to increase the trust within the decision. Adds to the quality also of the regulatory outcome, and we have really seen this. So I think overall we can say that patient involvement in EMA activities really has led to more meaningful decisions for all concerned. So thank you for your time.
Any burning question, or we keep all of them for the end? One.
Tom Lee, Covance. Could I just ask you, you mentioned there are patient representatives on, for example, PRAC. Do they actually have a vote, or do they just take part in the discussions? Obviously, very, very important contributions to be made, but do they actually have a vote in? And I do understand that it's only seldom that a vote is actually taken or necessary and so forth. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for that question. In fact, that's a very important question, because the patients the people who are members of any scientific committee, who are there representing patient organizations in Europe, are treated as equal members of the committee, like the National Competent Authority nominated members. So yes, they have a vote.